Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel where I go through everything to do with property in Dubai and the UAE, mainly handling investments for my overseas clients that are looking for a high ROI, whether it be through rental or whether it be through flipping and reselling, or maybe generating an income straight away with a unit that's already built. Today, I'm going to go through a few of my clients' success stories where they invested and took the advice that I gave them in the beginning. It was very comfortable for them in what they could afford, and now we are starting to see them make massive returns, where we've seen property prices in and around the area go well above what they purchased for. And on top of that, some of them have actually resold already and made a small profit as well. As well as off plan, I'll go through a great story about a client of mine who wanted an income generating unit straight away, but buying it at the right price, and running through that whole process with you as well. But all in all, I think you'll really like this as you get to see the clients, what their needs were in the beginning, because each of them are very different, how I met them and why they invested with me. And not only that, every single one of them has been a success story. So Al Marjan Island is one of my favorite places to invest, and we're seeing prices skyrocket month on month, with new developments being launched throughout the year and prices steadily increasing. Going back to one of my favorite developments has got to be Park Beach Residence 2. The main reason for this being my favorite, it's situated in a great location on Island 4, and I felt this was amazing value for money in regards to dirham per square foot and capital appreciation that we're looking to achieve in the next few years, in line with the casino opening. So as you know, the casino is opening by the end of 2026. And most of the developments are sort of in line with this, from Q4 26 to Q2 27. Now, Park Beach Residence, you could pick up a studio apartment for around 1 million dirhams. And these are very spacious in relation to other developers that have launched studio apartments. On top of that, the other developments that have launched studios are going to as high as 1.5 now, which is crazy. They may be slightly larger, but I feel there's no real value in this sort of price point when you're comparing it to a studio apartment of a similar size purchased for 1,050,000 dirham to a studio now that's worth 1.4 to 1.5 million dirham. You're talking nearly a 50% increase. Now, I know no development is the same, but the reason I loved Park Beach Residence 2 is they offered a post-handover payment plan. So as you know, with off-plan, as I mentioned in my previous story, you have to pay the full amount on handover, whether it be with cash or bank transfer or a mortgage. This developer offered an amazing post-handover payment plan. It's effectively like a mortgage direct to the developer without having to go through credit checks or all that painful, providing bank statements, all that sort of thing. So this was very good, very inviting, 20% down, 1% a month. And the client is over the moon now. So why did this client purchase the studio for 1,050,000 dirham when he's never even purchased in Dubai before? He's only been here on holiday once. Well, he's seeing how exciting the growth of all the property market in Dubai, but he was very skeptical on how and where to invest. In fact, he was kind of nervous. It was all being done on WhatsApp. He asked for an email from the developer with their footer at the bottom to make sure they are who they are, because obviously coming from England, doing thousands of pounds worth of deals on a WhatsApp group is not common. So I do find that a lot of my clients are kind of a little bit skeptical in the beginning. So that was quite a little bit of a hurdle to overcome. But the fact that I knew him from back home and I knew the developers were reputable, it created that bond, which we built that trust in relation to, as long as we found the right payment structure and the right product, he would purchase a unit if the figures stacked up. So a friend of mine, he had around £70,000 saved up. So what we had to do in this situation is to reverse engineer the numbers to ensure that we could cover the 20% down payment and admin fees on that initial down payment. And we knew that the monthlies were going to be around £2,000, which were comfortable for him as well. So by reverse engineering the numbers and working back from the total value of the property, we were happy to spend around 1.1 million dirham for the right unit. Luckily, on this launch, because me and my colleagues sold the most units out of anyone, we actually got to select the units days before they got launched to the public. This meant that people that invested through me and my partners got to select their unit in the best development. Now, people overlook how impressive and how beneficial this is. Not only are you getting the best developments, but you get to pick the unit before it goes out to the public, which means when it comes to short letting it or selling it on, you're going to have the best unit that was in your budget. If you look at that on the flip side and you come into a development after it's been launched for around 2 or 3 weeks, I guarantee you all the best units are going to be taken and you're going to be left with the less desirable ones, which is going to have a negative effect when it comes to renting it out or selling it on. Another one of my clients actually reached out to me on Instagram while they were here on holiday. They'd seen a post of mine that went viral talking about the Dubai property market and you should be investing now. Can't remember exactly what it was. But after that initial engagement through Instagram, we actually met up for a coffee at the Porsche Cafe in Blue Waters, and we actually went through how the Dubai property market works. And the timing was amazing because Park Beach Residence 2 had just been launched. We run through the numbers, and that being said, a day later, they secured a one-bed unit for around 1.6 million dirham, which in the grand scheme of things now, you can't even get a one-bed unit on the island for anything less than 2 million. So we've already seen huge growth in profit already, and it was only 5 or 6 months ago as well on this. So in the meeting, they did actually say they were blown away by how I presented all the numbers and answered all the questions that were bothering them about investing in Dubai. And on top of that, and I promise you this isn't a lie, the guy sat behind us actually interrupted our meeting and said, I've bought a few units out here, but this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Do you mind if I get your number as I'm just about to shoot off? It looked like I paid the guy off, but I didn't, I promise. But I think that had a positive effect as well. And he later on bought a unit through me as well in the exact same development. So it just goes to show when the right development is there and the right communication is done to ensure that you understand why it's right, you should be pushing the button to secure your unit with myself, who can guarantee you to get the best unit allocation on the best developments. Because believe me, I have agents messaging me all the time trying to sell me their development, and I'm just not interested in most of them. I only want to work with the best for my clients. So as an investor, the majority of inquiries are about studios and one beds, because these are great on a short-term let rental yield, and as well as that, they do have an appeal on a capital appreciation. But when you compare it to a premium unit, this is where you're going to see the biggest spike in capital appreciation. And we have tons of evidence, just to give an example, like the Bulgari Residence and the Royal Atlantis. So funnily enough, a friend of mine from back home, him and his business partner were extremely interested in investing in something that was going to be really impressive, that they're going to be able to use and actually hopefully resell for massive profits. So they've come to me and said, Reese, we want a premium unit with a premium developer. What can you do? We get thrown everything left, right, and center, but we don't know where the right places to invest are. So after jumping on a quick call with them, they then flew over here actually the following week, and we actually met up in person, went through what they were comfortable spending, what they were looking to achieve, as it wasn't the same as my previous as it wasn't the same as my previous investors that I spoke about, who are looking for a short-term rental yield that's going to be very high, and the opportunity to potentially resell for a small profit. These guys were purely saying, we don't want to rent it out, we want to use it ourselves, or we want to sell it on for double the money come handover when we see the spike in premium units go to its highest. So after much deliberation, we actually decided we were going to hold tight for a good 2 months until this new launch come about. The value in this is not to panic buy once you make the decision that you want to invest, is it to wait for the right investment, because what we were looking for wasn't available at the moment. Of course, there were premium developers offering units, but we were too late to the party with these developers, and I felt that the best units were already gone, and I felt our best move was going to be wait for a new one coming up where we will get first unit allocation, which I mentioned before. The developers I work with guarantee me secured units early on in the process as opposed to later on. So this meant that we could go for a premium 2-bed corner unit, Wynn casino facing as well as sea facing, which meant it's going to tick all the boxes when it comes to a premium branded residence, and it was just under 4 million dirham. So it's not just studios and one beds, it is premium 2 beds and above that are really going to appeal to the wealthy end user that's going to pay top money. Because remember, when you're selling a studio apartment, more often than not, it's going to be sold to an investor who needs to crunch the numbers to make sure that the yields stack up. When you look at premium units, on the other hand, you're talking about end users that will fall in love with the product and pay an absolute premium for. This is where you see a slight deviation with regards to studio and 1-bed strategy or premium 2 and 3-bed strategy. Both are equally as good, but if you really want the crazy high returns on capital appreciation, you're better off going with the premium option. Away from that, I actually get to work with a lot of families over here that are currently renting at the moment, but they want to buy something as an investment or for them to use. Let's face it, we all need to pay rent to live, but we'd rather own a house where we know our money's safe going up and not just going down the drain. So I understand the tough situation that you families are in. When you're renting a 3 or 4 bed townhouse, you could be looking at around 250,000 dirham. And if you want the best investment opportunities in townhouses, some of them are up to 4.5, 5 years. If you're paying off 200,000 dirham a year, you're effectively paying 1 million dirham over 5 years, as on top of that, of purchasing the off-plan unit as well. So it's important that we do try and come up with a strategy where you're paying as little as possible during your renting stage, and finding a unit that is going to have that capital appreciation that is at least going to cover what you're going to spend by the time it's ready in 4 or 5 years. So there's no point me trying to sell something to you that's going to take 4 years to get built, and you might make 200,000 dirham profit on it, and you just spend 800,000 dirham in 4 years. It just doesn't make financial sense in any way whatsoever. However, even though we know this, and not many people think about this when they're looking for their house, it's very hard to overcome. So you need to understand a number that you're happy paying out with month to month on rent, and a number that you're happy with on putting down as a down payment and paying back the monthly repayments to the developer. So it can be quite costly as an investor when it comes to off-plan. So we need to make sure that the right deals are out there. A client of mine from Europe has been living out here for many years, renting, and they've been looking at the perfect townhouse option, and it just hasn't come around. So when I heard about this offer, I picked up the phone, I rang him up and say, come down to the developers with me. You're not going to want to miss this. This is incredible. So after a great meeting with the developer, and it does help when the developer does know his numbers about the infrastructure going in the area and the product he's selling, as I've been sat on many calls and the developer hasn't even sold it to me, let alone the client. A lot of times I like to take the lead, but in this particular instance, he was fantastic and really delivered the product and its value A1. So bearing in mind, this family. So bearing in mind, this family had been looking for over a year now for the perfect townhouse to buy, and they hadn't found it. They've been looking at secondary, they've been looking at off plan as well, and nothing come up of real value, because when they did the numbers, they knew that when it took 3 years to get built, then they're going to be losing out considerably against the rent they're paying. And the ones that were already built, secondary market, were just too high with regards to the budget they wanted to spend. So it's quite a tough situation. So when the right opportunity came up, they moved forward on it straight away. We managed to secure them a unit that's going to be ready in 3 years, and we managed to get a 40% discount. On top of that, worst case scenario numbers, we're looking at over 1 million dirham profit based on current transacting units. So the timing is everything. When you're ready to commit, don't commit to the first thing you see. You may have to wait 1, 2, 6 months before actually committing, but make sure you go over the numbers and they stack up, because a lot of people will overlook the rent they're paying as a family over 2 or 3 years in relation to the off-plan investment they're getting, because not everything is going to stack up, but when it does, make sure you're ready to move straight away. And the good thing about when you're investing in these townhouse communities, we do have lots and lots of data that we can compare to before making a decision. When we compare this to Al Marjan Island, it doesn't have the same amount of data that these townhouse communities do in Dubai. So it's a little bit more difficult to convince someone who may need the data before they make the decision. To give you an example, one of our agents sold a unit in Damac Lagoons, and we were the third agent to sell it before it had even been completed. And each seller before us made a considerable profit of anything between 20 and 40%. So the actual unit itself made over 100% profit over 3.5 years, which is mind-blowing, but it's fantastic data that we can provide to our investors or families before committing to say, look, I know you're paying X amount of rent for 3 years, but we know that you have the capital appreciation in the property you've purchased, so you won't be out of pocket come handover. So I've pretty much covered the investors I work with, from the first time investors purchasing studio apartments that are going to have a very high rental yield, to an investor that wants a luxury product that's going to sell for double, triple come handover based on previous success stories. And on the other end, we have families looking for an investment that's going to coincide with their current spending on rent, which they have to pay, and to ensure that the unit they're buying is going to have the capital appreciation, so they're not out of pocket come handover and they can move in. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And if any information you need, feel free to drop me a message when it comes to anything in the property market here in Dubai and the UAE. Thanks for watching.